When I was a kid, there were certain locations or ideas that were just, they absolutely opened my mind, my imagination. And this lush, wet, foggy, damp place with moss and dirt and trees that were super high and vines that hang down through the trees. I mean, it just opened my mind up to my imagination to this idea of what could be possible out there. Are there things out there in the swamp that no one's seen? Is there a big enough swamp to where there could be something out there that nobody sees? And I think that's what I'm going for in this, is I'm trying to tap into a young market's imagination the way that mine was as a kid, and I know that my kids are when they think about locations or situations that open their imagination up. The Legend of Oak Swamp, The Mysteries of Ironwood, is about a boy who is brought into a new town, a town he's not familiar with. His mother, single mother, she drives him to this new town, and he's immediately introduced to this girl who lives across the street from his grandmother's house where he's living. The girl's in a similar situation as him in that she's brought up by a single parent figure. It's not long before we realize that they both need different things, but they both need. She's quite ambitious. She's actually trying to uncover this mystery about how her parents disappeared. She's brought up by her uncle. Colin is a bit shy, a bit socially behind, and he's also just on the dawn of becoming interested in girls. He finds this new friend in Grace, and it's not long before they get wound up into this mystery that is all about how her parents disappeared. And all along the beginning part of this story is this crazy looking rat that Grace knows has something to do with her parents because she's seen it in photographs that her uncle kept in these old books that she's uncovered.
And there's something else in the photos too.
This rat comes out only at night, and it comes to visit her house, and she's trying to catch this rat. There's a big trap that she sets, and Colin thinks that that's a little bit odd. Lo and behold, he runs into the rat, and he thinks, well, I'm going to impress this girl, I'm going to catch this rat for her. And he goes chasing this rat. Well, the two of them end up chasing this rat into the swamp and with another character named Tommy, and they all get lost in the swamp.
How far away from the lake are we?
Ooh, city boy's scared.
This all takes place in 1954, 10, 12 years after the end of World War II. These creatures that are in the swamp are all leftovers from government science experiments, killers and helpers for World War II. Top secret experiments that the government did, mixing different species to create creatures that were more disposed towards certain jobs. There were killer creatures, creatures that could actually be used on the battlefield, and creatures that could be helpful on the battlefield or off. Something that I love about this film is that it's a monster creature movie set in the 50s. I've never seen that before. I've never seen like old nostalgic feel that takes itself seriously. This would take itself seriously in that you're gonna actually be afraid of the creatures. It's a monster movie, it's a creature movie. The characters that are in the story obviously have to have a really good arc to them. Colin, in the beginning of the story, he starts off very nervous, frightened, afraid, and through this character, Grace, who is a more bold tomboy, she's a leader, she's trying to uncover the mystery of what happened to her parents, and that is the part of the plot structure of this whole thing. They were two scientists that were part of this group that created these creatures, top secret project in the middle of the swamp, and what happened to them.
My uncle said someone in the swamp killed my parents.
He thinks that he's not needed, and she thinks that she's completely independent. And by the end of the movie, he knows that he is needed and that he can be a leader. And she realizes that she does need to have help. No one can make it all on their own. Through this series of events that happens with the scientists in the swamp, they become very close. And we only just barely touch or brush past the idea of romance. Tommy's a boy in the town who's also around their same age. He's another social outcast. He's a big boy, he's a chubby boy. He finds his whole identity in being Babe Ruth. He thinks he's an amazing baseball player. For our purposes, he's some comedic relief. He provides a fresh perspective in certain times. And even with him, towards the end of the movie, he has a moment when he shines. What they discover is that they're much stronger together than just singly or just as individuals. As their friendship grows, they rely on each other, and they're able to actually overcome odds and problem solve and get from A to Z together. And so yeah, at the core of this, the skeleton is friendship. I was telling bedtime stories to my kids, and they just became episodic. You know, every night the story continued, and you're making it up on the spot. So I'm telling my kids this episodic story of the swamp and these creatures, and it's just sort of birthed out of that, these kids that have to face these formidable odds, and they have to do it using each other's help. At first they have the help of adults, but then they lose the help of the adults and they're on their own. And the idea of being on their own for a kid is something that's very powerful. Relaying that feeling through these episodic nighttime, bedtime stories with my kids, it started to just culminate this movie. And my kids want to see this more than I do. Like, they really want to see this film.